Welcome everyone to this on-demand presentation about direct mail testing. Over the next 15 minutes or so, I'll be covering some key elements of effective direct mail testing that can help you form productive experiments to help shape your business decisions. Before I get started, I'd like to take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Allison Jensen, and I'm the marketing manager for Compu-Mail. A little bit about us. Compu-Mail works with progressive marketers to increase customer spend by helping them talk to their customers, their donors, and their patrons in a way that their competition isn't. We serve a variety of industries, including retail, education, nonprofit, insurance, casino gaming, financial, and others. To help us make the most of our time today, I've put together a few housekeeping items. First is the agenda. We will cover what makes a true test, what can and should be tested in direct mail, including audience, creative, offers, calls to action, messaging, and envelope teasers. We'll also cover how to set up a test and how to measure results of a test. My goal is to introduce you to some new ideas and share some of our collective knowledge. We're always here if you need help getting started with anything. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at marketing@compumail.com. We'll be sending out a direct mail test worksheet in the next 24 hours, which will allow you to track the progress and results of your test in one place so you can easily see the results across the board. Please keep an eye out for this resource in your inbox. That's everything that we have for housekeeping, so with that, we'll get started. I like to begin a lot of these on-demand presentations with a set of definitions. This is just to make sure that we're all on the same page and looking at the information from the same perspective. Here, we will define A/B testing. In this definition from HubSpot, A/B testing, also known as split testing, is a marketing experiment wherein you split your audience to test a number of variations of a campaign and determine which performs better. When you're A/B testing, it's important to make sure that you are only testing one variation at a time to ensure that the results that you are getting are directly attributed to the element that you are testing. So it's audience or creative or offer, etc. If you want to test which audience responds better, you might want to make sure that the creative and the offer are the same throughout the different variations so that you know that the difference in response is definitely because of the segmentation or the personalization, but not because of the other changes that you might have made to the creative or offer. You only want to be able to compare audience to audience. Now I'll get started on some specifics on the different pieces of a marketing campaign that can be tested. The first is the audience. You want to ask yourself if you're mailing to the right people, and you want to strive to only mail to those that are most likely to respond to your offer and be interested in your products and services. And you really don't want to waste your resources or your time on uninterested or irrelevant prospects, so you want to try to avoid that as much as you can. The next is creative. There's some different elements of the creative that you can test, including the images, the personalization, and the formatting. When we talk about testing personalization, this can mean maybe testing the piece with and without personalization, where studies do show that response increases up to 135% with it, because people really love to see their name in print. You might also test the placement of the personalization on the piece, whether it's part of the offer, near the address block, anything like that, to see where it best gets the recipient's attention. If you're interested in learning more about personalization, we do have another on-demand webinar dedicated to it called Creating Marketing Messages That Stand Out. Feel free to email us if you'd like to link to that. The next component that we will discuss is the offer. You can test the format of the offer, whether it's a dollar amount or a percentage. You can also test the size of the offer. You might try different offer levels based on customer loyalty or other factors. You can see in this example where the person on the left is receiving 15% off and the person on the right is receiving 30%. This could be based on how often each of them orders. So the recipient on the left might be a regular customer that doesn't need as much of a push to make the purchase because they're probably pretty likely to do so with or without the discount. So it's just a nice added bonus to them, whereas the recipient on the right might be a new or prospective customer that needs more of an incentive to move to action for the first time. Another great thing to test is the call to action. There's a lot of different things to think about when testing the CTA. You could test the wording of the CTA, whether it's asking them to buy now versus asking them to shop now, to see which drives a better response. It could also be the formatting of the CTA, whether it looks like a button like the ones here, which, because they mimic online buttons, might draw the eye. With the buttons themselves, you can test the color to see which color gets the best response. There's some really great articles out there on the best colors to be using in direct mail campaigns to really capture attention. So kind of connecting all of that together, those are different things that you can test for calls to action. The next component that we'll talk about is messaging. In general, campaigns perform best when they are personalized to the recipient. Using the example from earlier, we can see on the other side of that same postcard that the messaging for this pet supply company depends on whether the recipient owns a dog or a cat. The messaging on this side of the card is clearly designed to speak directly to the customer by name and engages them based on pet ownership. You can experiment with your messaging to see what resonates best with people. The final piece of a campaign that can be tested that we'll cover today is envelope teasers. These are important tools that impact open rates. When you use a teaser to hint at what is inside, you entice the reader to continue. And this is an example of an envelope teaser for a nonprofit organization that we worked with. Now that we have covered what can and should be tested, the next element to discuss is the proper way to set up the test itself. So you want to split your list in half or determine a small segment to receive the test instead of the control. You want to follow the model to the right and repeat as necessary. And just remember that it's an ongoing process, so when one test ends, see what else you can be testing next. A/B testing follows the scientific method. You start with your question or your hypothesis, and then you work your way towards finding out if your prediction was correct. Some things you might test to see if they hold true could be a letter package will outperform a postcard, older generations respond more frequently to different offers, a picture of a person holding your product or using your product delivers more of a response than just a picture of the product itself. As we said earlier, be sure to test one variation at a time. So just the creative or just the offer. Otherwise, you won't know what the ultimate driver of the results is. You won't know for sure if it was the list that impacted it, if you changed the list and part of the creative. Before you send out your direct mail test, it's important to clearly label the piece to indicate if it was the control or the variation that was being tested. If you don't do this, it could be really hard to track the results. One way to do this is to code the data file and the direct mail piece with unique identifiers like coupon codes, personalized URLs or PURLs to track the results coming in, and then match them back to the original mail list to see what part of the experiment they were in, and that will help you figure out which drove the results. In general, as you are designing your campaigns, it can be helpful to keep the 40-40-20 rule in mind, where 40% of the campaign success is in the data, 40% is in the offer, and the other 20% is in the creative. This might help you establish the priority of your tests if you have more than one thing in mind and you want to figure out what order to test them in. As I wrap up today's presentation, I'd like to leave you with these key takeaways. The first one is make sure that your test is measurable. The second is only test one variation at a time. And the third is keep testing until you find out what works best for you and for your organization. It's going to be different for everybody, so testing really helps you figure out what works best for your business. As I mentioned in the housekeeping items, we'll be sending out a worksheet that will help you track all of your tests in one place so you can easily see the results. And if you need help coordinating any of your tests, or you're looking for other tips that we didn't cover in the session, or you want to go into a deeper dive on anything that we talked about, we're here for you. For those of you that aren't familiar with Compu-Mail, we're a full-service mail service provider. We work very closely with the United States Postal Service to ensure that you're getting the best possible postage rates and most timely delivery of your mail. Our primary focus is delivering quality print and mail solutions, and our expertise in various disciplines of direct marketing might provide a valuable solution to simplify your campaigns. We hope you find as much value in this as we do. Thank you so much for joining us for this on-demand presentation. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us and send us an email at marketing@compumail.com. Have a great rest of your day.